I just love being surrounded by history and this sense of beauty and all of the architecture around me and being close to nature all the time. Everything about life here I loved. Sadly, that happiness didn't last. It was a beautiful, beautiful time, but my father got very sick and died in 2009. And everything changed for me then.
Stephanie Jarvis became widely known through the Chateau Diaries, where she documents life inside a historic French chateau. To many viewers, her world appears charming and filled with ambitious plans, but there is more to her story than the elegant setting shown on screen. Behind the scenes are years of personal choices and challenges that are rarely discussed. From how the chateau is funded to how major decisions are made, many aspects of her life remain out of view. Join us as we tell you what you didn't know about Stephanie Jarvis.
If you want to have a place where you can just lock the door, go and do all of the fun things that you love in life, and then come back to find it looking exactly as it did when you left it, ready to welcome you, then don't buy a chateau. Because if I left this place completely empty, locked the door and went away, when I came back, I would find that leaks had started all over the place, half a wall would have caved in, and mold would have started growing over the furniture. And then I have to serve it and fix it and sort it all out. So only do this if it is a passion.
Born on August 18, 1975, Stephanie Jarvis grew up in England in an unconventional environment that shaped much of her outlook on life. Her father, Derek Jarvis, is British, and her mother, Isabel Biggio Jarvis, is French. Both of her parents were trained nurses with a strong belief that surroundings could influence well-being. Stephanie spent her early years living on a large country estate owned by her family. Rather than using the house as a private residence, her parents converted it into a care home for people living with Alzheimer's disease. They believed that serenity and beauty could improve the quality of life for patients. While the main house was used for care, Stephanie and her family lived in the attic space. This setting introduced her early to communal living, shared responsibility, and the idea that large properties could serve a wider purpose. On the career side, Stephanie was educated in England and later studied music and drama. During this time, she developed confidence in performance, public speaking, and presentation. These skills came naturally to her and later became an important part of how she communicates. Stephanie briefly explored opera as a possible career, though she later described her commitment to it as limited. Over time, her interests shifted away from formal performance. Rather than pursuing a conventional career path, Stephanie was drawn to environments filled with people, creativity, and daily activity. She showed a preference for communal living over private isolation, and enjoyed the rhythm of shared spaces. Travel also played an important role in her life, particularly in France, where she felt a strong cultural connection through her mother. As Stephanie moved into adulthood, practical concerns began to shape her decisions more strongly. By the early 2000s, she was living in London, where the cost of housing was becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Property prices continued to rise, while the amount of space available for the money felt limited. Owning a comfortable home in the city seemed less realistic with each passing year. Stephanie often spoke about this frustration with her close friend and former partner, Nick. The two had remained close after their relationship ended and shared similar worries about the future. They both owned modest two-bedroom flats in London, yet the combined value of those properties was already significant. During one conversation, Stephanie began to question why so much money was tied up in small urban spaces when it could potentially be used elsewhere. That moment sparked a bright idea. Stephanie began looking beyond London and beyond England altogether. Ultimately, France became the focus. Property prices in rural areas were far lower, especially compared to London. What started as curiosity soon turned into research. Stephanie began studying listings across the French countryside, paying close attention to location, access to nearby towns, and the condition of older buildings. She later explained that the numbers were impossible to ignore. The combined sale value of her flat and Nick's flat was enough to buy a large historic property in France. In her own words, it felt completely unreal that two small London apartments could equal the price of an entire chateau. That realization changed her view of what was possible. Stephanie and Nick began traveling through rural France in search of the right place. They did not want a property too close to major roads, but they also did not want to be completely isolated. Access to everyday needs mattered. Local markets, thrift shops, and food culture were part of the appeal. Their search eventually brought them to an area not far from Limoges. There, Stephanie first saw the 16th century Chateau de Lalande. The property was large, aging, and full of history. It needed work, but it also felt alive. Although she purchased the chateau with Nick, she was not alone in taking on the challenge. Her parents offered encouragement and practical help. Their support mattered, especially given the scale of the commitment. At the time, Stephanie was also in a relationship with Michael Potts, who strongly supported the decision. He offered both moral support and hands-on help during the early years. Now, what many might not know is that Michael Potts later became a co-owner of the chateau, along with Stephanie and Nick. Today, the property is jointly owned by the three of them. Stephanie spends most of the year living at the chateau and overseeing daily operations. The other two owners spend much of their time elsewhere. Speaking of the owners, Michael works as a photographer and travels frequently. He maintains a primary residence in the Netherlands with his partner. While he is often away, he remains involved with the property and its long-term plans. Nick, on the other hand, often referred to by viewers as the elusive Nick, prefers to stay out of the spotlight. He rarely appears on camera and values privacy. However, his wife and their son have become familiar figures at the chateau. Nick's family lives in Belgium during the school year, but spends extended periods at Lalande during summer and winter holidays. They are also renovating a separate apartment within the property. Looking back, Stephanie's decision to buy the chateau was not driven by luxury or fantasy. It was a practical response to the realities of London's housing market. Faced with the choice between staying in an expensive city or taking a risk elsewhere, she chose a path that offered purpose and long-term possibility. That decision marked a turning point in her life. What began as frustration over housing prices became the foundation for everything that followed. Speaking of a turning point, life did not change overnight for Stephanie after purchasing the chateau. In fact, for many years, very little appeared to happen from the outside. The scale of the property meant that progress came slowly. Restoration work was expensive, time-consuming, and often exhausting. For the first 10 years, life at Lalande was quiet. During this period, the chateau did not attract public attention. Stephanie lived and worked there without an audience. Restoration moved forward gradually because historic buildings demand care and money. There were no shortcuts. Each repair revealed another issue. The process became a long-term commitment rather than a short project. What kept things moving was persistence and a genuine attachment to the place. Then everything changed in 2017. That year, Stephanie was approached to take part in the British television series Escape to the Chateau DIY. The show followed people restoring historic properties in France and offered viewers a look into the challenges of renovation. Stephanie's participation introduced Lalande to a new audience. For the first time, her life at the chateau was being seen beyond friends and visitors. The television exposure changed how people viewed the project. What had once been a private effort became something others followed with interest. Viewers were drawn to the size of the chateau, the restoration process, and Stephanie's calm approach. The show did not solve the challenges of renovation, but it opened a door. In September 2018, Stephanie took another step that would shape everything that followed. She uploaded the first episode of the Chateau Diaries on YouTube. At the time, it was a simple decision. The videos were informal and personal. There was no large plan behind them. She recorded daily life, small projects, and the people who visited Lalande. At first, the views were low and growth appeared slow, but Stephanie posted consistently. Every week, she shared a new video, and over time, views began to pile up. Viewers felt included rather than entertained. Soon, the chateau became more than a building on screen. It became a shared space. People who stayed at Lalande began to feel familiar to viewers. Friends, helpers, and visiting family members formed a rotating group that audiences grew to recognize. However, an unforeseen circumstance emerged. The 2020 disease outbreak sprang up like a volcano. During that period, travel stopped for many people, and viewers around the world were confined to their homes. At the same time, the Chateau Diaries continued. The chateau became a place people visited virtually. Views rose sharply. What had once been a small online project turned into something much larger. Hundreds of thousands of people tuned in regularly. The channel grew faster than anyone expected. Viewers found comfort in the routines, the progress of renovation, and the sense of continuity. Stephanie's life and the life of the chateau changed permanently during this time. With increased visibility came new opportunities. The channel provided financial support for ongoing restoration. Projects that once had to wait could now move forward. Stephanie gained more freedom to plan improvements, maintain the property, and support the people who lived and worked there. Beyond documenting life and restoration at Chateau de Lalande, Stephanie Jarvis also enjoys travel and exploration, and in recent years that interest expanded into a new creative direction. In 2021, she began recording travel videos with her close university friend. These trips were notably different from everyday life at the chateau, focusing on friendship, discovery, and shared experiences as they explored cities and culture outside France. These travel vlogs marked the beginning of a separate channel project called Travels with My Friend. While life at Lalande remains central to Stephanie's work and story, the travel channel allows her to broaden her creative output and connect with audiences in a different way. It gives space for new experiences and perspectives without taking focus away from the chateau. The decision to launch a separate travel channel came naturally from years of shared adventures and a desire to explore the world while maintaining the sense of connection audiences value. In this way, Stephanie's creative path continues to evolve while staying true to the authentic storytelling her viewers appreciate. Looking back, buying the chateau did more than give Stephanie a place to live. It created a foundation. The property became the starting point for opportunities she could not have planned. Television led to online storytelling. Online storytelling led to community. Community led to financial stability and creative freedom. As the chateau began attracting wider attention, the question of funding became more urgent. Chateau de Lalande is a large and aging property, and keeping it running has always required steady income. For many years, Stephanie relied on traditional methods to cover daily costs and support minor restoration. Before 2020, the chateau operated partly as a small bed and breakfast. 5 rooms were rented to paying guests, often for extended stays. Visitors were drawn by the setting, the history of the building, and the chance to experience life in a working chateau. This income formed the backbone of the property's finances. Alongside this, Stephanie hosted music workshops and small events on the grounds. These brought in additional funds and helped build a sense of community around Lalande. Even with these efforts, progress remained slow. Then, the 2020 disease outbreak made the situation worse. Guests were unable to travel, and almost overnight, the chateau's main sources of income disappeared. There were no room bookings, no workshops, and no event fees. Expenses did not stop, but revenue did. Stephanie found herself in a difficult position. She had space, time, and a growing audience, but no clear way to fund the future of the property. Faced with that reality, Stephanie began to look more closely at what she already had rather than what she had lost. While the chateau could no longer welcome guests in person, it was still open in another way. When she began uploading content about the chateau during lockdown, viewers did more than watch. They talked, shared, and formed a connection with one another and with life at Lalande. Stephanie later spoke about how deeply she was affected by messages from viewers. Many said the videos helped them through isolation. Some wrote that they had not seen another person for months. Others described struggling with anxiety or depression and finding comfort in the rhythm of the chateau. At the start of the lockdown, Stephanie had around 10,000 subscribers, and as curfew continued, that number grew quickly. Within months, her audience had passed 100,000. With that growth came a new question. How could she continue restoring the chateau without guests or events? In early 2020, Stephanie made a decision that would change everything. She opened a Patreon account. Patreon allowed viewers to support the restoration directly. Instead of paying for accommodation or workshops, supporters could contribute monthly. Stephanie was clear about the purpose. The funds would be used only for restoration projects. Within a short time, thousands of people signed up. Contributions ranged from small monthly amounts to higher tiers for those who wanted to give more. By February, the Patreon funds had grown from nothing to about $22,000 per month. For the first time, she could plan restoration work with confidence. Projects that had been postponed for years could finally begin. The money allowed work on the chateau's chapel, a long-neglected part of the property. Plans were also made to restore a historic lake that had been drained decades earlier. Importantly, Stephanie kept a clear boundary between funding and personal income. Patreon money was reserved for restoration only. It could not be used for daily living. Her personal expenses and the running costs of the household were covered through revenue from her videos. This separation mattered. It built trust with supporters. People knew where their money was going. The transparency strengthened the sense of shared purpose between Stephanie and her audience. As Patreon grew, so did the community around it. Supporters did not see themselves as donors alone. They felt like part of the chateau's future. Restoration updates became shared victories, and progress felt like a collective achievement. Meanwhile, the impact of the success extended beyond finances. Friends and family who appeared in the videos became familiar faces to viewers. Stephanie's mother, known for her honest reactions and strong opinions, developed her own following. Her Scottish stepbrother and her stepfather also became public figures. Even people who rarely appeared on camera were noticed in public. What had once been a private life had become unexpectedly public. One major family event highlighted this change. The The wedding of Stephanie's mother was turned into a large themed celebration, inspired by A Midsummer Night's Dream. It appeared on television and was featured in several videos. The event drew widespread attention and became one of the most talked about moments connected to Lalonde. After years of steady growth and community building, not every reaction to Stephanie's work has been positive. As the Chateau Diaries reached a larger audience, some viewers began to voice frustration online about parts of the channel and how certain topics were handled. On fan forums, users expressed that Stephanie sometimes seemed inattentive to her audience's expectations, with comments suggesting the channel's growth felt slow and that interactions between Stephanie and her viewers did not always feel reciprocal. Other discussions on public forums went further, with some commenters claiming that questions raised by patrons about renovation timelines and project decisions were not addressed in a satisfactory way, and that content edits gave the impression of controlling the narrative rather than engaging openly with supporters. While these posts reflect individual opinions and do not represent Stephanie's official statements or the views of the broader audience, they show that as the channel grew, some fans felt unheard or disappointed at times. As the channel grew, attention shifted beyond the chateau itself. Viewers began to focus more on Stephanie's personal life and the people around her. Despite living and working closely with others at Lalonde, one fact remains clear: Stephanie Jarvis is currently not married. As established earlier, Stephanie co-owns the chateau with her longtime friends Nick and Michael. Their shared ownership has often led to assumptions among viewers, especially those new to the story. However, the arrangement is practical rather than romantic. Stephanie and Nick have remained close friends for many years, and Michael later became a co-owner after supporting the project for a long time. Their partnership is based on shared responsibility for the property, not marriage. Over the years, Stephanie has spoken openly about valuing independence and long-term commitment to her work. She has never presented marriage as a goal or requirement for her life. Instead, her focus has remained on preserving the chateau, managing its daily operations, and maintaining the community that has grown around it. In more recent years, viewers have noticed Stephanie's relationship with Philip Jansen. Philip appears regularly in her videos and is involved in many aspects of life at Lalonde. Their relationship has been visible and consistent, which led some viewers to speculate about a possible engagement or marriage. These rumors increased as Philip took on a more active role around the chateau. Despite the speculation, there has been no confirmation of marriage. As of 2025, Stephanie and Philip are still dating and have not announced any plans to marry. Stephanie has not shared any engagement news, and no legal or public records suggest a marriage has taken place.